Okay, hi. We are in the kitchen before we start this next part of the lesson because I want to show you my fermentation baby. So this is my science experiment going down in my kitchen right now. You might have heard of a really tasty drink called kombucha, and it's made from a colony, a symbiotic community of bacteria and yeast, and that's called a SCOBY. And that's what you can see sitting floating down at the bottom. Way down there, that's it. That's living and breathing and fermenting. What it's doing is it's actually taking sugar, so I have to add some sugar in, and it's eating it up and it's producing carbon dioxide and then some other byproducts that we really like vinegar that tastes good. There's other things if we were to go into our fridge, actually I can just go right here, things like soy sauce are fermented. And let's see if I can find any other fermented food. Things like yogurt. That's fermented. Do you know anything else? Let's see, here we have apple cider vinegar. Here it even says with the mother. And the mother is the organism that helps create it. The thing that ferments, we call that the mother. So I just called the other thing the SCOBY. We might be able to call that, you might call that the mother too. So this is fermented. Here we have pepperoncinis, but you might have in your fridge, you might have some pickles. Those are fermented. Pepperoncinis, I think, are fermented in here too. So let's figure out what this fermentation is. Are you ready? So here it reads, fermentation is a metabolic pathway in the cells of living things which occurs when oxygen is absent. Which organisms below do you think can ferment? Plants, bacteria, fungi, and animals. So my guess here is bacteria and fungi. Oh, and we missed a type of organism. Animals. Ooh. Plants. Oh my gosh, all of them do! Many types of organisms are capable of fermentation. How does bread get its texture and taste? Yeast ferments the ingredients used to make bread. Carbon dioxide and ethanol, or alcohol, are the end products. Carbon dioxide is responsible for the holes that give bread its texture, and ethanol, though it mostly evaporates, contributes to the flavor. Why do you think our muscles hurt after a hard workout? Muscle cells undergo fermentation when they work hard and have exhausted their oxygen supply. Eventually, lactic acid buildup causes fatigue and we start to feel sore. How do you think fermentation is different from glycolysis? Fermentation can't be done by prokaryotes. That's not true. We know bacteria are prokaryotes and they can ferment. Fermentation is only done by animals. Not true. Fermentation doesn't make ATP. It actually does make some ATP, and so does glycolysis. Fermentation uses a different input molecule. That is what I'm going to select. Okay, inputs and outputs. Let's see if we were right. We looked at which organisms can ferment. We have hypothesized as to how fermentation is different from glycolysis. Now we'll observe some details of fermentation while keeping that hypothesis in mind. The graph to the right represents the process of fermentation in a yeast cell. Read the graph, then mark whether each chemical listed is increasing, decreasing, constant over time, or not present. So here we have carbon dioxide is increasing, pyruvate is decreasing, glucose, not present here, ethanol, increasing, water, not present, oxygen, not present. All right, so we're producing CO2 and ethanol, and we're using pyruvate. Pyruvate being formed after glycolysis. Okay, so let's pause there and take notes on that. All right, and so from that graph, we got one pyruvate, and it goes to ethanol and CO2. Let's see how it works in the energy challenge. So now we have this pathway available, that's fermentation, and we'll need to generate 8 molecules of ATP to move on. So let's start with glycolysis, breaking down glucose, putting in an ATP with a phosphate, adding energy to begin, and having an electron carrier. Okay, and now let's go to fermentation. Okay, we're going to use our pyruvates, our electron carriers. We're going to produce an empty bus and our waste products, CO2, which causes the bubbles in bread, and ethanol, which makes some of those foods alcoholic. So you could have wine and beer that's produced by fermentation. Or you might produce something that's similar to ethanol, like a vinegar, and that's what you get also in kombucha. Kombucha has a little bit of alcohol in it, but not enough, not that much. Okay, so oops, we make sure we want to get 8 ATP, so what do you think we have to do? We have another glucose. Let's go ahead and run that again. Putting in energy, ATP. All right, and generating a pyruvate and taking our electron carriers. Okay. Oh my gosh, our target is 8. We got to keep going. One more glucose. So maybe you're starting to notice right now we had to do this a couple more times to get not as much payout. And there we just ran it. Now we have 8. So okay, we're ready to go. So let's focus on those details. We can watch our animation again. But what inputs, outputs are or are not involved in strictly fermentation? So did fermentation use ADP or ATP? Not involved there. It did produce carbon dioxide and ethanol, and we put in the electron carrier in the full version and we got it out in the empty version. Oxygen was not involved. We did use pyruvate and we did not use water. All right, and now let's watch it again because we need to count up how many were made. All right, so did you see it there? We had 2 pyruvates went in. Oh, so we only need to look at NAD plus. We had 2 produced. Ethanol. Produced. Carbon dioxide, 2. Produced. So why would we undergo fermentation? It produces carbon dioxide gas and ethanol. Humans have used these byproducts to make bread and fermented beverages for thousands of years. What is the role of fermentation biologically? How does fermentation help the cell gather or continue to gather up energy? Choose the answer below, which is the most likely reason that this process evolved. Ethanol and acetic acid or vinegar are beneficial to the organism. That's maybe not true. Oftentimes these are toxic. I mean, think alcohol is a toxic chemical. Carbon dioxide is necessary for the organism to survive. If you're a plant, you need carbon dioxide, but otherwise it is a waste product. Fermentation produces more ATP It does not. But fermentation here, this is the right answer. It recycles electron carriers and allows glycolysis to continue. So notice how we produced NAD+. That really was the point of this all. We'll focus on what fermentation does in the cell and what it produces. Here we go. What is the total number of atoms in one ethanol molecule? So let's count it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oops. I'm gonna lose a point for that. That's goofy. Aerobic electron transport reactions in respiration produce electron carrier molecules. These molecules can be used later in later reactions. These special reactions are called electron transport chains. We just learned about those. The reactions of the electron transport chain can be aerobic with oxygen or anaerobic without oxygen. Some chemoautotrophs can use inorganic matter as an energy source. Inorganic energy sources are electron donors. In other words, those that give away electrons. These sources include hydrogen, carbon monoxide, ammonia, nitrite, sulfur, sulfide, and ferrous oxide, ferrous iron. In an anaerobic environment where there is no oxygen, terminal electron acceptors, things that take electrons, have to find something else to use. These other options include nitrate, nitrite, ferric iron, sulfate, carbon dioxide. They also include small organic molecules such as fumarate. What does anaerobic mean? Remember, A means without, neurobic with oxygen, anaerobic without oxygen. Okay, so this is cool. They're going into another interesting feature of anaerobic respiration is methanogenesis. Methane genesis, creation of methane. Here it goes, flatulence, a fart, a toot. We call it many things. You know, humans and many other animals emit methane gas. But why does this happen? Methanogenesis is the biological production of methane gas. The process utilizes an anaerobic electron transport chain. Why do you think humans emit methane gas? Select below. Organisms living inside us make methane gas as waste products of their energy gathering. Is it that the food we eat turns into methane gas through the transmorgification chemical pathway? I have never heard that word before, so although it seems tempting, we're not going to select it. Transmorgification. Organisms inside us make methane gas as a waste product of photosynthesis, or the food we get. So that would imply that we have organisms that can use the sun to make food, and that's not true. Although that would be really cool. But the food we eat gets broken down into methane gas by our cellular respiration process. I'm going to go with this one. And that's incorrect. Okay, this is probably the right answer. So yeah, our cellular respiration does not produce this because it produces carbon dioxide and water, but instead organisms living inside us do. So living inside us, we have chemoautotrophs that use hydrogen gas and carbon dioxide for energy through the anaerobic electron transport. They release methane gas as waste through methanogenesis. This type of organism live in extreme environments, including the human gut. What's extreme about the human gut? Well, it is very acidic. So they're not bacteria, but archaeans, a type of prokaryote that is similar to but distinct from bacteria. And we talked about those last semester. Chemoautotroph, again, meaning something that can make energy from chemicals, like they were just talking about. All right, so here we go. Methanogenesis. During this process, a series of reactions in microorganisms called archaeans produce the compound methane. The graph to the right represents the process of methanogenesis in an archaean cell. Read the graph, then mark whether each molecule is increasing, decreasing, or constant over time. So here we go. Carbon dioxide, decreasing. Hydrogen, decreasing. Glucose, not present. Methane, Methane is CO4. CH4, increasing. Water, increasing. ATP, yes, increasing. Okay, so we're going to take notes on that. All right, so I made a graph. I counted up. So I wrote methanogenesis, production of methane by anaerobic electron transport by archaeans. And then here you have the inputs on the left. That's carbon dioxide and hydrogen. And then we're making ATP, methane, and water. Oops. All right, so let's go through this energy challenge game. We have the anaerobic electron transport chain, and our target is 3 ATP molecules. Okay, so here we go. We need to put in our hydrogen. We need to put in carbon dioxide. We need to put in a DP so that we can have it move with an extra phosphate to make some ATP. Methane, water, ATP. All right, let's do it again because we're trying to make 3. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro. Electrons moving from hydrogen over to carbon dioxide, making methane one more time. So these hydrogens are bonding with that carbon dioxide, taking 1 ATP and 1 phosphate. Cool, we did it. Okay, so here we go. We did put in ADP. We got out ATP. We put in carbon dioxide. We put in hydrogen. We got out methane. We are not messing with these NADHs right now. We had no oxygen present. We had no pyruvate, and we did not produce any water. Oh, wow. So if we didn't use them, then we write not involved. Oh gosh. Okay, important to slow down here. Let's go back and look. We actually do produce some water as an output. So yeah, it makes sense. Those hydrogens are combining with the oxygens to make water, and then the other hydrogens are going to carbon to make methane. Conservation of matter. You don't have anything created or destroyed. So everything has to be accounted for. Okay. So what's the point here? Methanogenesis provides a way for organisms to gather energy in environments where hydrogen and carbon dioxide are present and without glucose. This environment is harsh, cold, with no sunlight and little food. In these low nutrient, low oxygen environments, most living things would die, but the archaeans that use methanogenesis thrive. The hydrothermal vent shown to the right is one type of common home for methanogenic archaea. Yeah, so these things are super cool down at the bottom of the ocean. What conditions are required for methanogenesis as described above? So as described above, we're deep in the ocean. We are producing methane, but it's not necessarily a condition necessary. We don't have oxygen. Does it say anything about carbon dioxide? It says where carbon dioxide are present, yep, and hydrogen is present. It's in a high pressure, but I bet they're gonna say, I don't think it's required. but it is high pressure way down in the bottom of the ocean. And high temperatures. Harsh cold. Oh my gosh, what am I talking about? Not high temperatures. Okay, here we learned something. It doesn't have to be completely absent, but just low. Methanogens don't just grow at deep ocean vents like the one pictured. Some even grow inside humans, so maybe we unselect deep ocean. All right, there we go. All we need is carbon dioxide and hydrogen.